Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. As always, my name is Mike Chisholm. As always, I am stoked to be here. I love hosting this podcast. It is it's the highlight of my week anytime I get to have some of these conversations where we talk to all sorts of different people through the lens of HeChangedIt. If you haven't downloaded the HeChangedIt app, what the heck are you waiting for? It is in both app stores. Come check it out. It is a free download, lots of free resources, and you ain't seen nothing yet. All sorts of very cool stuff will be added to this app as things go. Join the revolution. If you haven't subscribed yet to heCast, please do so. If you haven't shared us, what the heck are you waiting for? We have phenomenal content with phenomenal people talking about phenomenal things. Today is, and I'm going to tell you this, every time I do one of these things, I talk about how excited I am. It's true every time. Now, not every single guest that we have are topics that hit me right to the core of who I am. Today, we have somebody on here who literally I've never met in the flesh, but could be considered definitely a brother from another mother. We have up here in Canada, we're broadcasting from Canada here. We've got a television network that's dedicated to esports, electronic sports, video games, that kind of a thing. I just looked into my cable package and realized that I had it. Decided to start exploring some of the shows on there. And that is where I was introduced to Jay Bartlett. Jay is a guy who he collects toys and is way down the path of the collector in the toy field. This is something that speaks to me. This morning, I went through a list of the things that I collect. I collect about 15 things. Toys are one of the things that I collect. And within that, there's about 10 different brands of toys that I collect. I would wager that Jay is an expert level of intelligence for all 10 of those things. And he's got two shows that I saw on this Jinx network. I think there's a third one that I haven't even discovered yet. One of them is called Action Figure Adventure, where we'll talk about it, and the other one is the Jay and Rob Toy Show. And I am hooked on these things. And I reached out, and Jay has said, "Yeah, I'll be on the podcast." And I can't wait to dive into this. But without further ado, Jay Bartlett, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on heCast today.
Oh, Mike, it's a pleasure to be here. Fellow Canadian, which is really cool. I'm not on a lot of Canadian podcasts, mostly American and UK stuff. It's really great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I think heCast, I'll talk to the team, but last I heard we're in 13 countries are viewing us. But yeah, broadcasting from the west coast of Canada, you're in the east coast. Yeah. My parents actually are from Ontario. Originally, they moved out in 67. I was born in 76. And one of your episodes, Action Figure Adventure, you actually went to my parents' hometown, which is Cambridge, Ontario. You actually went to a toy store in Cambridge. I've got like 150 relatives out there.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a small world, right? It's funny. Ontario doesn't have as many toy shops as I thought. So we had to go outside of Ontario, which is just fine because we love doing the road stuff. But yeah, that's really cool. They're from there.
So, okay. At the time of the broadcast here, I'm 45. How old are you, Jay?
46.
Okay, so we're cut from the same cloth.
Yep.
I'll tell you this. I attracted to the content you guys are building immediately for a variety of reasons. But one of the main reasons was you. Like, I looked at you and like, when it comes to diving into something, I've always been a guy that has, if I fell in love with a movie, I really fell in love with it. I wanted to watch the making of it. I wanted to look at what made it behind the scenes, how it ticked, that kind of a thing. When I got into collecting something, I really went hardcore, and I collected G.I. Joes as a kid. When I love a music band, I really, really, really got into that. You seem to be the same guy. Have you always been the guy that when you like something, you just dive right into it?
Yeah, with me, there's really no limitations, which is good and bad, I guess you could say. There's a handful of things that I love in this world, but the things I do love, I really, really love, and I try and put everything into it. I'm not the kind of guy, I don't have to know everything about it. I love it when people tell me stuff about Star Wars that I might not know or whatever else. I think that's great. So you called me an expert a little bit in the pre-interview or whatever. I appreciate that, but I'm just a guy who loves this stuff like you.
Yeah. Well, and when you fall in love with something, it's easy to go down that to learn the information about it and to retain it. Like, I mean, I wasn't the best student in the world, but man, if you throw me and ask me, how many different versions of Snake Eyes came out by 1991, I could tell you that immediately and tell you all the differences between them and even a few other things. When I fall in love with it, the information just sticks.
Yeah, and I was the guy in public school and in high school that you're in geography class, and I sucked at school. I really hated it because I would be reading G.I. Joe comic books or talking to my buddies about Nintendo stuff, and it was like, "Where is Australia on the map, Mr. Bartlett?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know," but I know like where Storm Shadow's from, and they're like, "Okay, you can go to the office now." So to be able to do this for a living, more or less, is really a blessing.
Well, I can only imagine. I mean, you talk about, there's that Chinese, I think it's a Chinese proverb, you become an expert at something with 10,000 hours. I mean, if you can take a hobby that you have spent 10,000 hours on and suddenly turn it into something where it's a pseudo career or a full blown career, my God, the blessing that comes from that. So catch us all up, because I'm curious. You've got 3 shows that you are doing now, right? Who do you do those shows for, and what are they, and how can people find them? Let's start with that.
Well, we have 2 shows that are on network TV: Action Figure Adventure Season 1 and the Jay and Rob Toy Show Season 1. Both, we just wrapped up Season 2 of the Jay and Rob Toy Show a few weeks ago, and we're going to start. Actually, we started filming Season 2 for Action Figure Adventure already. Where I came into all this is Nintendo Quest, which is a film that we did about 5 years ago. That was my first real thing, which is Rob basically is the filmmaker. And he said, "Hey, let's make this fun. I dare you to go out there and get every single Nintendo game ever made in 30 days. And I'm like, "Sure, man, let's do it." Of course, it took a few days for me to think about that because that's quite a task, but that was my first thing, really.
Now, was the whole thing getting them boxed?
For Nintendo Quest? No, it was just coming up with the list. We came up with 678 that were licensed. You had to be able to buy them in the store. So there was none of the bootleg Bible games or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the list we came up with. And we just went with that. I mean, I used my own money, right? And these were going in my collection.
Yep.
So to me, some of them, it mattered if they were boxed, just to have, something like Stadium Events, which is a holy grail in video games. To have something like that boxed, there's only 6 boxes in existence, right? So to be able to have that with a box, sure, yes. But all of them, no, because that would have got way too pricey. And then the trifecta is the instruction manual for NES games, right? So it was just the cartridge the cart was needed. Yeah.
I gotcha. We're going down this path here now. Now, HeChangedIt is a mental wellness vehicle. It's for men. It's a place that guys can go and talk about all sorts of different things and deal with stuff. I don't want to go too far down the path without getting into the content, because I mean, you and I could just nerd out and go for it and completely isolate our audience. But I want to talk a little bit about. I mean, you talk about hobbies and passions and every life coach or counselor or anybody that we've talked to about men's mental health, especially when we get into that middle age time, we talk about a sense of purpose. And I would submit, and I mean, you were a collector, I was that guy in high school as well, the guy that you described. I was very much that guy. And, I think about collecting things and the psychology even behind that. Like certain things I collect and I'm like, yes, I need that. Certain things I collect, I'm a completionist, so I want all of that. And my brain seems to understand all the little nuances that come with that. But I think the broader term is, does collecting provide us a sense of purpose?
Oh, wow. For me, collecting represents taking pieces of your past and taking pieces of your home and bringing them back to your home. So when I see, I don't know, like a new version of Hot Rod, I identify with that character so much. And then it goes into Judd Nelson, then it goes into Breakfast Club, then it goes into 1985. So it's just a chain. Every piece I look at, I make that connection. So it's not just a Skeletor figure to me. It's like, oh, it's Christmas 1982 and mom made hot chocolate and I can remember and I can smell it. Every piece in my collection is like that, more or less.
Yes.
So they're all very important to me. Being a completionist isn't necessarily something that I strive for. The problem I have is my mom, she treated me so well that she literally bought me some of everything from every line. So there's nothing I don't collect. I collect every single line out there. That's a problem. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I bet it is.
Yeah. Sorry. I lost track of what I was saying. I tend to go off on tangents like that.
Not at all. No, this is it. Like this is the back and forth that I love that we do on this show. I want to talk about your mom a little bit.
Sure.
In my formative years, okay, so I'll tell you this. I was watching Action Figure Adventure, and you had a segment in that show which it hit me right in the heart. And it was talking about your mom. And you lost your dad earlier on, right?
I did. Yeah. 1999.
In 99. So formative years still. You were obviously who you are now, but a much younger version, still trying to find yourself, all that. And there was a piece of videotape that you played in the show. It was videotape from years ago of your mom. And she actually was endorsing your collecting. She was basically saying, oh, I'm glad that he gets to go and search for these things and find these things. I loved before the internet or in the internet's infancy, I loved going to pawn shops or toy stores in other cities around me. And the treasure hunt is part of this collecting thing. And she was endorsing that part of you and saying that, like, supporting it. And I was so grateful to hear that. And she said that it was so hard when you lost your dad and you're such a family guy. And then she said, God forbid anything ever happened to me, but I'm glad he has this collecting. At least that was my interpretation of the videotape. Yeah. Now, since then, that was the message that was on the show, right?
You're not far off. My dad and I didn't get along. So, I mean, literally he was not a nice person. So without taking this to a dark place, I mean, when he passed of a massive heart attack. Yeah. To me, it was a relief because he really was awful to my mom and I. Right. So losing him was tough in the fact that even though mom knew he was bad for us, she's old school, right? So, you know, when you're old school and you get married, you stick with it no matter what happens, kind of thing. So for me, it was almost like a relief. It's like, wow, she gets to be free now. I get to be free because, you know, we weren't allowed to have friends over and stuff like that. And he was always making scenes and all that kind of thing. So the part that you're referring to was old footage that we put in from Nintendo Quest because Rob interviews her for that.
Right.
A lot of who I am, most of it is because of her. She felt, I believe, that she really had to compensate for the way he treated us by taking me out of this world. Right. So I remember specifically, again, all these are like pictures in my head. I was sick one day at school. I used to be sick a lot. And I was at my grandma's, and every single day my grandma would come to the couch with a soup and a G.I. Joe. So I got Scrap Iron, Destro, and Major Blood one day after the other.
My grandma gave me the Terradrome.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's amazing, right?
We're identifying right here. Yeah, absolutely.
She felt like she had to kind of compensate. And so these characters and these items mean more to me than, I don't want to say anybody, that's not true, but you know what I mean? They mean more to me than just being a toy or a symbolization of something that doesn't exist. It goes way deeper than that.
You know, I had my dad on this podcast. Now, my dad, the man you were describing in your father, I can identify with that. My dad's 70 now. My dad and my mom are still together. My mom is a saint. My mom and my dad are still together because my mom, I call her a low-flying angel. That's who she is.
That's awesome.
My dad had anger issues for years and years and years. I actually had him on this podcast and we talked about it because 5 years ago, he was in danger of losing it all. And he went on actually 10 years ago, and he went on this journey. And for the last 5 years, he's released all of those things. I had an incident with my dad when it came to a toy. And I'm curious if this happened to you as well.
Sure.
My dad was a fisherman, hunter, old school, real old school.
Yeah. Yeah.
One time I came home. Okay. So we're talking probably close to 99. Star Wars Power of the Force, the big green lightsaber, right?
Yep.
They released an AT-AT. And it was the first new AT-AT in a long time. And I was like, holy shit, I have to have this, because that was one of the toys that I never had when I was a kid that I always wanted. I brought it in, and I was still living at home at the time. And my dad, he was still my angry dad at that point. And he went up one side of me and down the other. And I'll tell you, I stood up for myself that day. That was one of the first days I stood up to my dad. I must have been 19 years old when that thing came out. And I pointed to all the fishing rods. I pointed to, his hiking boots. I pointed to that. I said, this is the shit you're into. This is what I'm into. I need you to accept that. Yeah. And I had this moment with him, and we had a really we butted heads a lot when it came to collecting. He didn't understand it at all. Did your dad accept you for the collecting stuff, or was that something that he just chose not to understand?
No, he didn't accept anything. He wanted me to be a sports player, a baseball player. I used to love baseball, right? Yeah. So he wanted me to be a baseball player. I got into basketball, and then I started to get into skateboarding after I discovered music, and music was my first love. Yeah. So when I discovered music, of course, I wanted to be Axl Rose. I wanted to be Tommy Lee. So I grew my hair, skinny jeans, black t-shirt. And then, of course, why do you want to look like a girl? Those guys all look like girls. And it's like, want to play the drums like Tommy Lee. Oh, well, could you pick anything louder? It was just never this support.
Always something to say, never support.
And my favorite film of all time is Return of the Jedi. And Luke's arc specifically. I'm sure most Star Wars fans will feel the same. Yeah. But there's something about Luke taking control of his life and facing his father, except at the end of Return of the Jedi, he gets to turn his father back and save him. And that was kind of always something that I would hope happened, but it never did. So that scene, the last act of Jedi in particular, is very meaningful to me. Yeah. But we never had that reconciliation. The last conversation I ever remember having, I just recorded a demo with my band. We were called Basement. I laid down the drum tracks. I bought the tape home and I played it for him, and he just kept watching like football or whatever. And I think that's, stereotypical, but that's another reason I dislike sports so much, is because of that, right? He's just watching his football game. He couldn't even listen to me playing the drums, whether he liked the music or not. So yeah, I always wish he was, but I mean, I've let that go, right? I mean, that's long in the past. I appreciate where you're coming from. I look at Return of the Jedi like, okay, so my conversation with my dad, I wanted a tattoo of Slave One when I was 15, and my dad scoffed and he said, tell you what, if you want it when you're 25, I'll pay for it. Yeah. So when I was 25, I got a tattoo of Slave One on my arm, and I didn't make him pay for it. Out of spite, I didn't, because of those types of conversations. And sure. I think about Jedi, and I have that same love. Like when Luke is fighting Vader and the operatic music with the chorus, the voice choral chorus is there, and that music, I've got goosebumps all up my body, even just describing that to you. Every time I watch it, I still have that, and I identify with the Luke Vader dark light. Is there resolution, defeating your father, that kind of a thing. Sure. I mean, George, when he built that trilogy, that original trilogy, that's put in there intentionally. I think every man has to go through that at some point. Yeah. And there's also the aspect of, I mean, I was never bullied. In high school. As I'm still a small guy. I was a small guy back then, but again, the beginning of that film, there's this elaborate plan to save Han. And it's like, okay, we have 3 steps to this plan. If everything fails, I'll come and take care of it. And when you see Luke destroyed at the end of Empire, he's missing his hand. He's damaged. He just found out this revelation about Vader. Yeah. And then you see him in Return of the Jedi walk into Jabba's palace, all in black, which is not a Jedi thing. Not at all. Yep. He chokes the guards, which is not a Jedi thing. Yep. But he's not evil. He's just doing it his own way. And I always really related with the fact that he's walking into this den by himself, not giving a fuck.
Yes.
Just going up to okay, get out of my way. The main guy is like, okay, you're going to give me your friend or you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And boy, did they get it. He takes down his organization. It's just, I don't know. I could go on about Jedi. I think it's the greatest film of all time, but
no, and I love it too. And it's funny. I was always a Luke guy. Like my friends were all Han Solo guys. Every single one of them were Han Solo guys, and I was always a Luke guy. And I think part of it, as a kid growing up, Star Wars being such escapism, being such a part of, and I don't want to paint my dad into a picture of an abuser. Like he had some anger, he had anger issues, massive anger issues, and that created mental trauma. And I know that I use toys to escape and comic books and things like that to escape that.
Sure. That makes sense.
Star Wars, out of anything, if there was an arc of a character when I was a kid that I wanted to go on myself, it would be Luke. Let me ask you this. So Mandalorian season 2 comes out. You watch the finale. How long did it take before the tears started flowing and the goosebumps when you saw
I can't even really start to talk about it without crying, to be honest with you. It's one of the greatest moments in Star Wars. I watched that scene over and over again. Talked to my girlfriend shortly after, and I was crying on the phone with her. Obviously, it was great to see Luke, but to me, it was Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau saying, "It's okay, we got you.
Yeah,
we know they fucked up. This is Luke. This is how we want Luke to be. We're going to fix this." So it was, I mean, as soon as you saw the X-Wing, it was,
oh, I know.
And then nobody, it was, I think, one of the best kept secrets in Hollywood of any of the Star Wars movies. Like that was, nobody knew. You figured it would be Ahsoka who would come at the end or. Yeah. Something. There's no way it would be Luke. And I mean, it was so delightful. And the way that it mirrored the scene out of Rogue. Actually, Rogue. You had a Facebook Live show the other day that I jumped on, and I thought maybe we were going to discuss one of the potential topics was your favorite Star Wars episode of all time or whatever. And we never really got to it. But Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. It's barely etching out Empire and Jedi. And I loved Rogue One so much for a variety of reasons. I could go off on Rogue One. But that scene with Vader, the scene I'm talking about, the fan service scene, and the scene with Luke, I just love how they mirror each other so much, a father and a son, and what they're doing when they, I just loved that. Oh God, I could go off. It's really cool to see how far, actually how powerful Luke really is.
Yes.
You don't get to see that. I mean, you get to see it, is
in Last Jedi. It's blue balls. Blue balls.
He projects himself. So that's, that's powerful in a different way. But both that Rogue One and in The Mandalorian, you get to see Luke and Vader both just all these powers that you've used in all these video games. You finally get to see them. So it's really cool to see Luke just own those Death Troopers like they were nothing.
I know.
It's great.
Okay, so to go back, so we're nerding out like crazy. I know you and I could do this forever, and it's amazing. I want to analyze it a little bit. There's mental wellness that shows up in being able to do this with another dude.
It's very therapeutic. Absolutely. Yeah. It's why I do 2 live shows. I mean, I love talking to people. I love just to go on StreamYards and hit live and just watch people come in and just talk. And we start to talk about Buck Rogers or Star Trek or whatever it is. And it's very Joe Rogan, where it just kind of, I have a loose outline and then it's just goes into something else. I love that organic flow. And I get people messaging me all the time, oh, dude, check out this guy I just found in Walmart. And I'm like, oh, congrats, man. It's amazing. I think especially now with what's going on in the world, people need that more than ever. And as long as you're not spending more than, you're paying rent and stuff like that, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's very healthy for us. It's very healthy for us to talk about who would win, Prime or Megatron. It's just fun, right? So
I think back to, it's funny you talk about, by the way, I almost messaged you the other day. You're like, I can see this happening, whereas Jay Bartlett kind of gets out there a little bit, you're going to be like the Pied Piper. I'm certainly following your song already. I was in Toys R Us yesterday. And by the way, for our American viewers, yeah, we still got Toys R Us up here in Canada. And I'm lucky to live in a city that has one.
It's amazing.
Oh, so fucking happy that we still have them. I was in there yesterday and I'm a big Ghostbusters guy. Like I love Ghostbusters, and Hasbro's been doing right by Ghostbusters lately. In my opinion, I've been really happy with the toys they've been releasing, and they got a shipment of Plasma series figures, including the Ecto One. And I'm looking at the Ecto One, going, I wonder if this thing is worth buying, and is it worth buying? Is it worth keeping in the box? Because I'm that guy too. Some of my toys, again, it's that weird pathways. Some of the toys that I collect, I rip out immediately without like Pavlovian, like I need this out now. And then some of them are like, no, you know what? And I've got hundreds of Power of the Force toys that are still on card, like hundreds of them. It's weird how that happens, but I wanted to reach out to you immediately and take a picture and go, hey, is this Ecto One worth picking up from a collector's standpoint? And it's funny how the community, when you find somebody, I use the description to you when I reached out to you, was a fisherman can always identify another fisherman. There's a lot of us out there right now. And I think that we're all kind of coming together, and your show is doing that. Are you aware of the bigger part, or are you just enjoying the ride and nerding out?
I mean, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. So Nintendo Quest, and then we toured the film across North America. I'm aware of it. I'm glad, I don't usually talk about that kind of thing. I'm very humble about that kind of stuff. I think it's great when someone reaches out, we can talk about toys. Particularly the toy community is great because you can love Ghostbusters and I could love Star Wars. And if I saw Ecto One, I'd message Mike. I'd be like, Mike, do you need this or whatever? You saw Jedi Luke version 255,000. You'd be like, do you need this Luke? There's a real respect for each other's IPs. Like Rob's the Masters of the Universe guy. He made a Masters of the Universe documentary. I certainly like He-Man, but it's not my main thing. Right. So the camaraderie is great. It's very different than the video game. The people in the video games, the community. Sorry, So they're great, but it's a lot more competitive, and I think by definition, video games are more competitive. So
sure. I want to talk about Rob a little bit. Okay, let's get back to your mom first, then we'll ask about Rob, and then we can nerd out some more.
Sure.
So we see this footage of your mom, and she's like, God forbid anything ever happened to me, and it is old footage from the old movie. And now your mom is in a place where there's some stuff going on.
Current right now?
Yeah.
She passed in January.
She passed in January. See, I didn't know that. I just was looking at the show, and I knew dementia and things like that. So she actually passed earlier this year.
She did, yeah. And it's crazy. Like December, I got a divorce. My wife and I are great friends.
Yeah.
But that's it. Right. And so it's like, hey, you want more, I want more. So, I went through that. So there's nothing more haunting than being by yourself on Christmas, which I had to do by choice.
Yeah, no.
And then in January, she passed, and it was, it's never pleasant. But thankfully I met my current girlfriend during this time too. So she's been an angel kind of. It's funny how all this dark stuff can happen. And then, this light kind of comes. It's very Star Wars, right?
Sure.
But she passed. She had a 4-year battle with Alzheimer's and dementia. And she also had crippling arthritis. So she couldn't get around. She couldn't walk. So that really, she just went downhill pretty fast. Yeah.
So I'm going to, and again, we talk about emotions on the show all the time. You're in a safe place. I'm going to ask the question. Like, I've had family members who have passed through that mental degradation that can happen, Alzheimer's, dementia, these types of things.
It's horrible. It's horrible
when they're living. And you talked about relief earlier. Was it a relief when mom passed?
For her.
Yeah.
She was in her house. We had to take her out of her house. And she went and lived with my aunt. My aunt is in her 80s, right? And she's in great health, but it started to get to the point where mom needed 24/7 care. So we had to put her in a nursing home. And it was, this always haunts me, right? Because she said this to me years ago, whatever happens to me, don't let them put me in a home. And so then that's why an action figure adventure, I don't know how far you are, but there's a part when we're going to California and I can't go. It's because
I haven't seen that episode yet. No, but feel free to spoil it. Like
I was with my wife and we were in New York at the time. And I got the call. It's like, you have 24 hours to decide. The opening is here for a spot. And if you say no, her name goes to the bottom of the list and God knows how long it can be. So I had 24 hours to decide. So as I'm in New York, I'm getting ready to go to California to shoot. And I had to call Rob. I'm like, I can't go. Like, I can't go. So we ultimately decided to put her in there, but she was pretty far gone that I don't really think she knew. She thought she was in a hospital for her back kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's sad. I think, I mean, I've seen family members die of cancer, which is horrible in its own right. I've never seen anything like Alzheimer's and what it does to somebody. It's the most cruel disease I've ever encountered. It's just, sucks, man. Yeah.
No, and I hear you and I understand that. And that's where that relief comes in. And I just, in just getting to know you and talking about this, Dad passed and there was a bit of relief there. Mom passed and there's kind of relief there, but you talk about light, dark side. Like, isn't that interesting how
it is? Yeah.
That I don't know if you've ever dissected that or not, but that's
no. And I never thought about it that way. And so we started talking about that. But yeah, I mean, her passing obviously sucked, but for her, she's just lying in that bed every day, just lying there. Like, like the TV's on and she's not seeing what's on it. It's like, what kind of life is that?
Yeah.
Just because you're breathing doesn't mean you're alive, So it was a relief in the fact that she's not suffering anymore. Of course, it sucks because I lose my mother, but.
Well, and this is where we're at right now. And guys in our mid 40s, and it's funny. Our midlife crisis is different than our father's midlife crisis. The Gen X. It's interesting being Gen X in our late 40s, early 50s now. It's interesting knowing who we were growing up, and seeing how millennials and beyond are reacting to our generation the way that we reacted to that baby boomer generation. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I do believe we are the only generation that's really got to keep our childhood intact.
I mean, there's some ridiculous stuff, and this is a whole other show, but I don't know if you're obviously a Star Wars guy. Have you ever seen The People versus George Lucas? Have you ever seen this documentary?
Yes.
So I'll just throw out my opinion. I think it's horrible. I think it's, George Lucas destroyed my childhood and stuff like that. That's so stupid. It's like, so my point to what you're saying is that these people let that stuff happen. It's like all George did was make more fucking Star Wars movies, man. Yes. Like, do you want Han, Luke, and Leia, like the same story over and over again? Because you'll get that, and then you'll bitch about that too.
Yep.
So it's like another time, another place. Some of the characters are younger. Most of them are new. Here you go. It's a little shinier. You don't like it, then just don't watch it, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
the ironic thing about what you're saying, though, is like, if we didn't have our childhood still intact, we wouldn't have a safe place to bitch about it even. Like, that's how out to lunch so many of us are. Well, no, don't you understand? Like, this thing that you hold so precious, you're really in many ways the first people that have ever had that opportunity to love that still in adulthood.
People love these franchises so much, and they've put so much time, money, and effort into it for decades that it forms part of their identity. Like, Star Wars becomes you. I mean, that part in Return of the Jedi, I have tattooed on my arm when Luke takes his hood off, because it's like probably my favorite image on the planet, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I tattooed that on my arm. You tattooed Boba Fett's ship, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, that's how much this stuff means to us. Where our parents, it was like Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle and stuff like that.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't remember any of our parents ever buying a Mickey Mantle jersey or wanting a Mickey Mantle tattoo, or, I went to like the playing or the trading cards and stuff like that. But this is a part of who we are so much. So when someone like J.J. Abrams comes, or Rian Johnson, and they write how he thinks Luke should be,
they play in the toy box. Yeah.
We get our backs up, right? It's like, well, that's my Luke. Don't mess with my Luke.
Yep.
And it's like, this is not how I envisioned Luke. And that's not honestly how I envisioned Luke, but tough tits, we didn't, we weren't in charge of writing Star Wars. So I don't like 9. 9, I think, is awful.
Okay.
I mean, I watched it, but I let it go. I still think Ren is a great character, and I think Rey is a great character. I just didn't. It was too fast, too much, too quick.
Yep.
But if you were to say to me, Rise of Skywalker is my favorite, I'd be like, that's wicked, dude. What did you like about it? I wouldn't challenge you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, you're wrong.
And again, let me plug your shows. Like, I felt the need that I can, like, holy shit, this is a guy that is so inclusive when it comes to whatever people like, that I can reach out to this guy because, it's so refreshing to see that there's a lot of bitterness and anger out there towards things. And I'm the same way. I want to let all that shit go and just focus on the things that I love and really enjoy it when other people focus on the things that they love, because maybe they can give me a different point of view or they can turn me a little bit onto something.
No, I agree. And, there's been a lot of podcasts I've been on that the guys are bitter or they're like the experts. And that's why I don't ever call myself that, because
I see,
I was on a Transformers one and I know a lot about G1 Transformers because that's what we grew up with. I love the movie. And we're talking about that. And then they start talking about Beast Wars from the 90s. And it's like, I got something wrong. I think I called Primal Prime by mistake. Actually, Jay was Optimus Primal. His first appearance was blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, okay, man,
you're chumming the water for the sharks, my friend.
Just relax, So I never wanted to come across like that. Rob never wants to come across like that, like gatekeepers. It's like, unless you have memorized every fact about Return of the Jedi, I can't have a conversation with you. That's such bullshit.
It is. Yeah. It closes the door, and we want to open the door.
Yeah, and it comes from we're so protective of these because we grew up with them and they stayed with us forever. And I get that. But Star Wars is not yours and it's not mine. It will always be George Lucas movie. Yeah. No matter what, it's always his. We can love it as much as we want, watch it as much, but it's never ours. So once you wrap your head around that with Transformers, Joe, anything, we'll get along better, right?
Well, we can choose to win or we can choose to lose. I choose to win. I choose to find the good in shit as much as I can and just celebrate it and go hard into the things that I celebrate. I don't love everything about the Marvel movies, but I got a Hot Toys Thanos back here because I thought he was so badass. But there are some people who would just close the door on the entire thing if there was one thing they didn't like.
Yeah. Speaking of Thanos, I thought he was great. I was complaining because you see Josh Brolin's face too much.
Oh, yeah.
Thanos, and when we grew up with the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos had white eyes.
Yep.
And that was my only thing. But did it take away from the movie? No. And I'm certainly not going to say, oh, Mike, why do you have that? That's not what Thanos looks like. It's
exactly.
Right. Like,
oh man, okay. So we're on the same wavelength when it comes to this stuff. And I knew that when I reached out, and I'm glad of the optimism and community. Because the ironic thing is the people who get on teams against each other, and I guess we get on teams on all sorts of shit, like, phones have teams, Google versus iPhone, or, sports teams or whatever. But in our community, like, you think about it, we were in some ways, yes, maybe not bullied, but the outcasts, the ones who weren't getting invited to the parties because we had, a phenomenal G.I. Joe collection well into our teens, and it's funny that we were not maybe accepted or we hid parts of those things. And now that it's out in the open, people in that community, they can't fucking get along when really, if you said to those kids, hey, you could be popular if you like this stuff and just get along, that would have been a dream come true. It's so ironic.
I let that stuff go. I remember the day I was dating a girl in high school and one of my favorite bands is Kiss. And I remember she was listening to whatever. And I was trying to convince her why Kiss was the best band in the world. Like, I'm telling her. And I remember, like, she didn't want to talk to me after that. Like, we started talking again after a while, but I sat back and like, man, I was really a dick. It's like, because she didn't see the things that I saw in this band, I was making her feel bad for that. So I learned that lesson really early on. Yeah. There's these people that, again, for some reason, Transformers seems to be a real hot button topic for people. It's like, what's better, G1, the Michael Bay stuff, or, you know, the new War for Cybertron?
Yep.
Who cares, man? Like, I like the G1 because I like Judd Nelson, and Hot Rod is my favorite character. It's really as simple as that, right? Yep. It's not like, well, the transformations were more complex in War for Cybertron. It's like, dude, I don't fucking care. Like that's very, no pun intended, that's very robotic. It's like, I like the Transformers movie because it makes you feel stuff. It makes you feel things. You feel for these characters, right?
No, and it's funny talking about things that we're passionate about. It's almost like we as men have to learn how to be passionate about the things that we love without going overboard. Like you think about like negative terms that are in our lexicon right now, like mansplaining and things. And when you talk about that, the experience with the girlfriend and talking about Kiss, I've been the same thing. Like music. I know you're a really, really big Dave Grohl guy and Foo Fighters.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails.
Cool.
And I understand when you hone in on a favorite, like Faith No More and Nine Inch Nails are my two kind of all time. I worship at the throne of Trent Reznor when it comes to rock god. He's my guy when it comes to that. And when I look at how much you love Dave, it's the same. I understand that. But there was a time where I would try and mansplain why Trent Reznor was so talented and why Nine Inch Nails was so vastly underrated and how much of a genius he was. And I used to go into that stuff. We almost got to learn how to be passionate if we're going to be passionate and we want to keep effective relationships.
Oh, I agree. And it sounds like you did this a while ago too, right? So you learned that lesson as well. And it's just silly, right? Like, I think my favorite record of all time, I think, is still The Real Thing. I've never listened to anything so much as I've listened to that record. And yeah, Mike Patton's like, he's not even like a rock singer. He's just like one in a million, right? But yeah, trying to say, I haven't. No, I've never seen.
It's worth it.
No,
it's worth it for sure. Phenomenal.
I've seen Foo 29 times. I haven't seen Faith No More. My buddy, it's funny. My buddy and I had tickets for September last year, and of course everything got canceled. So hopefully they come around again. Yeah.
I had tickets too. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. No, I want to see him. It's one of those things. I find as I get older, I love all music, but because I just find it like I'm lazier. So it's like most of the time, like London here, we get some pretty good bands at Budweiser Gardens, but most times you have to go to Toronto. Yeah. And it's like two hours away from here.
Same thing.
So it's like, okay, I'll go to Toronto for Foo Fighters. I'll go for any of the Gallaghers. Mike Patton, and that's about it. I think that's about it at this point, right? So yeah.
Oh man, I again love this so much. I got a bunch of Faith No More stories we can trade later on.
Oh, nice.
So I want to ask about you and Rob first, though, because I mean, time is slippery, as you know. When the cameras go on, time gets really fucking slippery. So I want to be respectful of your time and our listeners too. We try and keep it.
Oh, you got me as long as you want, man.
Oh, dude, I appreciate that. Yep. Well, we'll just talk about, and there's stuff to leave on the table for part 2 because we're going to do that. And certainly as we gain traction, we are going to use this as a promotional machine for our friends and whatnot. And I just want to promote everything that you're doing. These
awesome.
Next 2 seasons that you have coming out of Action Figure Adventure and the Jay and Rob Toy Show, same thing. And I want to ask about Rob because I look at you two, and I don't know how long you two have been friends, but you two seem to have a dynamic where you've been through enough shit together where you almost have a shorthand and you almost have that telekinesis relationship. You guys are really, really dialed in. Have you been friends for a long time?
Yeah, he lived 2 doors down from me when we were growing up. So we've known each other forever. Started playing with toys, of course. Then that evolved into Nintendo and Genesis. Yep. And then we got into music. I was the drummer. He was playing guitar. And it just kept going on. Then he went to film school. And we were jamming. My band was jamming one day, and I got the call from him. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm making this doc on collecting. Do you want to be one of the collectors in it?" I'm like, "Sure." And him going to follow 3 collectors through their weekly routines of where they went. Yep. We kind of rewrote that. So it became Nintendo Quest, and they just focused on me, and it kind of changed. But that's a short version of our history.
So, but Thick as Thieves, like, I mean, he's involved in every project you're doing. His role is more behind the camera, producing, like the heavy lifting on that end of things. Or does he prefer to be in front of the camera with you?
No, he's the director 100%. He's got a vision for everything, and he's good at it. It's hard work. I'm not going to lie. It's very strenuous, which, don't laugh. You're going to stores buying toys, but it's very stressful. Everything we do is real. Nothing is scripted. Nothing is rehearsed. So you only get one shot to go into these stores, right? Yeah. Like you said before, the pre-interview, it's like, you can't recreate this stuff.
Nope.
So we'll save it for when we're live, kind of thing, because you can't recreate it. I'm not an actor, right? I'm just a guy who loves pop culture stuff. So.
Well, and that astonishment reaction that you get when you see a carded original Steelface Cobra Commander. Yeah. I don't know if he had the swivel arm. I don't think he even had the swivel arm battle grip. Like, it was the original, I think.
It was the 83, which had the swivel arm.
Swivel arm battle grip. That's the original one. And the look on your face, you can't recreate that. When you see these things for the first time. And that's part of the magic of this, is bringing out, 46-year-old, the kid out of 46-year-old Jay for just a moment with that look on the face. And you can't recreate that stuff. That's the beauty of the show.
It's historical. And you were talking earlier about, how you kind of wrestle with if you're going to open something or you're going to leave it in the box kind of deal.
Yeah.
Rob and I, stole this thing from Star Wars, the rule of 2, which of course, you know what that is. The rule of 2 for toy collectors is you buy one to open and display, and then you keep one in the package.
Yeah.
It's not because we think this stuff is going to be worth money. It's because the art on the box is gorgeous. And Hector Garrido, who is the main Joe artist for a long time, those splash explosion original paintings he did. In the series, we go and meet Carson, who has the greatest G.I. Joe collection on the planet. And I got to hold the vamp arts, the original Hector Garrido print. He had it. And I got to hold that. And I can't tell you, man, the feeling you get. So my point is, seeing that Cobra Commander, the figure is great, but it was the Hector Garrido art, that explosion, and just how gorgeous Cobra Commander looks.
Yep.
And all of that. It's like, you can go to your comic stores all the time. You can go to your local shops. How often do you see a Cobra Commander? How often do you see an Optimus Prime boxed or whatever? So it's going into these things with this sense of adventure, not knowing what you're going to find. You turn a corner, you're like, oh my God, it's Jedi Luke on the card or whatever, just, it takes your breath away.
The treasure hunt cannot be understated when it comes to collecting.
It's great to have a list of things that you're hunting for. That's great. But I really love when you go in there with nothing in mind.
Yeah.
And you see, oh my God, it's like, it's the Inhumanoids, or it's, some Star Wars or something I haven't seen since I was like 9 years old. Yeah. That stuff is crazy. Anytime I see anything Mask is a really rare treat, right?
Yep.
So
we're getting close here. We're going to get to the toys we have brought. So for the segment of our audience that enjoys toys, this is going to be fun. Before we get to both Jay and I have both, we've come up with something recent. So a purchase that we've made recently, and then something rad. And that was the only parameter. So we both have a little bit of show and tell. Before we do, I got to geek out with G.I. Joe a little bit with you. I'll tell you this. The greatest G.I. Joe moment of my entire life was on a Christmas morning. And my mom had given me a dummy present. Like, this was the year. Remember the mobile command center that was more like a tackle box than a vehicle?
I do.
So she had a box under the tree that was about that size. And I thought, okay, she got me the command center. Phenomenal. Great. Amazing. And Christmas morning, I opened that box last. She made me wait till open it last. I opened it, and it was a box that was full of toilet paper and a few other things. And I'm like, what the heck? And I hear behind me, as I'm having this realization, I didn't realize my mom had gone out onto the sun deck, and I'm looking at it, going through it, going, oh, is this it? Is this it? Is it just a bunch of? And I heard this. Behind me. Yeah. And I turned around and looked, and my mom was pushing in the box for the Defiant.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm covered in goosebumps right now because I had never even seen it in a store.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the second biggest G.I. Joe playset of all time.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mom was 5'3" or whatever. And so she's literally pushing the thing in. And I think, you know, I have a lot of favorites when it comes to G.I. Joes. I can go way, way, way deep. I can tell you why I like the gold-headed Destro version 2 better than Destro version 1. Like I can go way, but if there was one G.I. Joe moment that just absolutely floored me, it would be the moment that she walked in and then the literal rest of the day and the next day putting that sumbitch together. The Defiant was my G.I. Joe story there. What's yours? I know you're a big G.I. Joe guy. What's your, if you got to pull one right now, what is it?
I have two. Yeah. March 2020, I was invited onto a show with Larry Hama to be a guest beside him. And to get to be there with Larry was insane. Like Larry is such a brilliant man, and he's a very stern, but yet funny guy.
Yep.
You just, don't say stupid stuff around him or he's going to make you know that you said stupid stuff. Right. But I got to show Larry my 1984 Storm Shadow. I got to show Larry my Storm Shadow. I'm like, because of you, Tommy came to life. Like he was just a white ninja to most kids, but because of those books, and then, we got talking about how Storm Shadow was never a bad guy. He was always, he just infiltrated Cobra to find out the killer of his uncle.
Yep.
And that's why version 2 is my favorite with the Arashikage tattoo. So that is the reason I got the tattoo.
Because you saw it on the action figure's arm.
Because of the action figure's arm. And I always like Storm Shadow better as a Joe, as a good guy.
Me
and
too.
Of course, number 2 is my midlife crisis right here, which is the USS Flag.
Yep.
It sits proudly in my studio here. I mean, that's
the most impressive toy of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
It is. It still is. It absolutely is. I got that last July during the middle of COVID. I've been looking at it for a long time, and much like most of us, right? For our mental health, it's like, what the hell, Why not? So I treated myself to that. Those are two stories for you.
Before we get to something recent, I'll tell you, I'm in the pro wrestling world. I have a pro wrestling promotion anyway, we can get into that later on. Most of the viewers don't even know that, but I'm part of this fraternity called Cauliflower Alley. And last year or 2 years ago, now that I think about it, I was at the event and Sergeant Slaughter was there. And cool. Which is great. Right. And I love him from the wrestling, but my real love is G.I. Joe. And when I went up to him, and all these people at Cauliflower Alley go to the famous people and they ask for stories and all that. It's a great time, but it's so funny. He had just finished talking about one of his famous matches. And I said to him, "Hey, Sarge, I'm a promoter out of Western Canada, which is great. Blah, blah, blah. We know a couple of the same people. But can I talk to you about G.I. Joe?" And Jay, I swear to God, he lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. He was like, "Yes, let's talk about G.I. Joe." And he's so excited about it.
He's such a big G.I. Joe fan. He's a huge Joe fan still. Yeah.
He does
every year he does Joe Fest in Augusta, Georgia. Every year. Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna round to the finish here. You and I we're gonna do some show and tell. The criteria, something recent and something rad. So I'm going to let you go first. You're the pro. What's something that you've purchased recently that you're excited about?
Well, before there was Superman and Spider-Man and all those superheroes, the superheroes of the world looked very different. This is by a company called Boss Fight Studios, and I'm a huge fan of Zorro. So this is modeled loosely after the Gabriel New Adventures of Zorro and Lone Ranger figures, but this is Zorro and Tornado, as it's pronounced, his horse. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece. And I'm hoping that Boss Fight does the Lone Ranger next, because I'm really looking forward to that. They did a great Flash Gordon 3.75 inch 2 based off of the 79 movie, the 1980 movie. They're just a great company. They're really underrated. Their figures are pretty pricey, but they're extremely detailed. So there's Zorro for you. That's one of my recent pickups. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. So I got, it was Free Comic Book Day recently.
Yeah.
So on Free Comic Book Day, one of the local stores had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set that was just for Free Comic Book Day. And I'm a big fan of the old comics, the black and white.
Yeah.
And so these figures are in the black and white with just red masks. And that was cool. Something that I saw and I'm like, okay, yeah, got to have that. And they only had one in the store. So I don't know if my inclination is to tear them out, but then there's a part of me that goes, well, they do display really, really well. And I do kind of love them in the box. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Most of these are designed now. You just slip the tape. You can pull the tray out. Yeah. And then put them on and then put them right. Like every Marvel Legend, Black Series, pretty much everything Hasbro does, you can put back. So that looks like that will go back.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, this is an investment for you. I say open it. And we're talking about box art. The box art on that is nothing great, right? It's like this. It's just a big window.
100%.
Right. So I would have cracked that baby open. That's just me.
Well, that probably will happen. I'm going to leave your rad to the end because I feel like your rad is going to be better. So I'm going to show you my rad. This to me, this is if I had a holy grail in my toy collection. There's been some wildfires where I live, and I went up into my office, my home office, and said, "Well, if we get evacuated, what am I going to grab?" This is one of the few things that I was going to grab. This is an original Return of the Jedi Minton card, Boba Fett that I'm so pleased that I have this because I love Boba Fett so much. And it also gives me, because I collect so many things and I'm so eclectic in my collecting, I'm not a completionist. This gives me street cred in the collector's world.
You know what? You can't go wrong with Boba Fett. It's so interesting to see him in Empire and Jedi. I think I read an article. Well, his combined screen time was like 5 minutes between the both movies. He just stood there and he just looked cool. Yep. Right. And then us as kids were like imagining all these adventures with Boba Fett and how cool he was. Just that space cowboy, right? He's just like a bounty hunter. He's just so cool. That's great, man. And Jedi Boba Fett, I always think is better. The pouch is different on the waist too, which
I love the picture. Wicked. I like it way better than the space shot that you could get. The other one, I know that one's worth more, but I'm not, I mean, my kid's in here as one of our crew. He can decide what to do with it when he gets it after I'm gone.
Yeah. No, and I love the vintage Kenner with the still of the movie. That's my favorite Carbacks. As you can see, I have the vintage collection all there, right? So I just love the way the art looks. Okay. So for everyone watching and listening in TV land, I don't know how much you're going to appreciate this or no, but my favorite character is Storm Shadow. Yeah. Now this is, I guess, my second favorite of Storm Shadow. I wanted to show something a little bit more rare. First appearance of Storm Shadow is in the Marvel run of G.I. Joe number 26, written by Larry Hama. And it depicts
the origin part 1.
Yeah. Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Stalker, and the origin of how Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow meet. This is Tame Arashikage from a comic pack that came out in 2006, which was basically came with Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Stalker. I didn't bring his weapons with him, but this is Tommy, Vietnam Tommy from the Vietnam War. And he comes with his bow where he saved Snake Eyes and stuff like that. This figure pack is not only extremely hard to find, but not a lot of people know about it. I only discovered it maybe like 3 years ago that there was even a Tommy Arashikage figure. So I got him on eBay, and then I quickly got a second one just because I was really scared that the first one was going to break. Yeah. But for anyone who loves Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, I don't want to say the new movie and stuff like that isn't. I mean, that's just a different interpretation of it. Yep. But the original was written by Larry Hama. So check out G.I. Joe 26 and 27, the Marvel comic. You can get it on any app. It's just such a beautiful story of how Snake Eyes becomes who he does and how he meets Storm Shadow, how Stalker is such an important part in their story. It's great. So there you go.
And then it moves into G.I. Joe, I believe it's 42, and then 45 and 46, where they go to Cobra Island together, which is fucking bonkers. And you talk about a payoff in a story too. I mean, oh my God, what a great run of comic book story there.
I mean, the way the Hasbro figure was marketed as a Cobra figure, but you read it and you know that he's just infiltrating Cobra to find out who killed his uncle, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's like, I loved the ninja, but when you're a kid, I don't know about you, but you always rooted for the good guys kind of thing, right? 100%. So yeah. So thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. And this is it sucks that we're ending this, but we're ending this now. Jay, I can't thank you enough for accepting my request and taking that step of faith to be on here. We're certainly going to continue to follow you. You expressed interest when I told you about the show and what HeChangedIt is doing. You expressed interest in that and wanting to help men's mental health, that kind of a thing. So thank you very, very much for being so open with your time and with your passion. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mike. It's very important. Everyone's mental health is very important. And us being men, that's what we're talking about specifically. It is important. So, don't keep that stuff in, guys. I'm not a psychologist, but if you need to talk to somebody, man, call your parents, call your friends, and just talk to them. Because these times are hard. We are kind of coming out of it now, thank God, but it's been a difficult year and a half. So yeah, just remember there's always someone out there for you to talk to.
If action figure adventure, any further adventures, if you make your way out to Western Canada, I will show you all my haunts. I will love to hang out with you. I'm sure you hear this from a lot of other people, but Jay, thank you very much. You're a brother from another mother. And action figure adventure, the Jay and Rob Toy Show. Please watch it wherever you have the ability to do that, whatever country you're in, search it out, find it out, rattle the cages of your cable provider to get it on if you don't have it on your system. And thank you very much for being so generous with your time, man.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Cheers, mate.
Another episode. There we go. HeChangedIt, HeCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. My name is Mike Chisholm. I'm so happy that you have taken time out to listen to us talk about what we're passionate about. If you haven't downloaded the app, please do. HeChangedIt.com has all the information. My name is Mike Chisholm. This has been HeCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. Go change something.